Imagine a German panzer commander, turret buttoned tight, iron tracks churning Soviet soil in 1941. You see movement low to the ground, dust rising. Not infantry, dogs, dozens, strapped with pouches, running straight at you, 8 inches of wooden lever jutting from their backs. You swing the machine gun down, too high. They are too low, too fast. One dives beneath your chassis, contact. 12 kilograms of TNT detonates against the belly armor. The weakest point, your tank stops. Who trains dogs to die? Why does a desperate nation turn man's best friend into a living mine? What happens when the weapon runs back to its own trench with the bomb still armed? Soviet forces fighting a German advance that brings panzers within 10 miles of Moscow. The Red Army lacks effective anti-tank weapons. The PTRS-41 Simonov anti-tank rifle can penetrate 40 millimeters of armor at 300 feet. German Panzer IV OSF-E medium tanks roll with 50 millimeters of frontal plate. Side and rear shots only, close range. The rifle weighs 46 pounds. Clumsy, unreliable, never enough to go around. Soviet commanders need something else, something cheap, something that exploits the one weak spot every tank shares, the chassis, the underbelly, the place where armor is thin and fuel lines run exposed. Enter the anti-tank dog. Russian name Собаки Истребители Tankov, tank destroyer dogs. German name Hundeminen, dog mines. The Revolutionary Military Council of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics approves the use of dogs for military purposes. The decree covers rescue operations, delivery of first aid, communication, tracking mines and people, transporting food and medicine, hauling injured soldiers on sleds, and destruction of enemy targets. A specialized training school opens in Moscow Oblast. 12 regional schools follow. 3 focus on anti-tank work. The Soviet Army has no dedicated dog trainers, so they recruit hunters, circus performers, and police dog handlers. Leading animal scientists join to organize wide-scale training programs. German Shepherds are favored for physical ability and ease of training, but other breeds serve too. Drops the explosive, returns to the handler. Timer or remote detonation follows. 6 months of training. Results are dismal. Dogs get confused when targets move or multiply. They return with bombs still attached. Handlers and dogs die together in tests. The program shifts. Disposable dogs. The dog becomes the detonator, new harness design. 2 canvas pouches, 1 on each flank. 10 to 12 kilograms of TNT total. A wooden stick 20 centimeters long mounted vertically above the dog's back. When the dog crawls under a tank, the stick contacts the chassis, knocks backward, triggers the charge. Instant death. Maximum damage to the weakest armor. Trainers use starvation. Dogs are denied food for days. Meat is placed under practice tanks. Conditioning. The dog learns that food lives under big metal shapes. Pavlov's theory in reverse. Ring the bell, dog drools. Starve the dog, it runs beneath tanks seeking reward. No movement. Fuel and ammunition are precious. Realistic battle conditions are skipped. This will prove catastrophic. 25. Peer-reviewed military history sources from War History Online published November 30th, 2016. Russia Beyond's detailed report from August 22nd, 2018, which cites primary Red Army documents and German Wehrmacht intelligence assessments, and the Military Wiki's comprehensive documentation of Soviet anti-tank dog programs with cross-referenced German operational reports. Now back to the information. The training schools operate with industrial precision. Moscow Oblast facility processes hundreds of dogs per month at peak capacity. Instructors are civilians turned soldiers overnight. Circus trainers who taught dogs to jump through hoops now teach them to crawl beneath moving steel. Hunters who trained dogs to retrieve game now condition them to seek targets that kill. The psychological toll on trainers is immediate. You are reprogramming an animal's survival instinct, teaching it to run toward danger instead of away, using hunger as the primary tool. Tank engine off. Dog associates the shape with reward. Day 13. Engine on. Diesel fumes. Noise. Dog hesitates. Hunger drives it forward. Meat is there. Conditioning strengthens. Day 14 through 20. Engine running. Tank rocks slightly. Handler adds complication. Dog adapts. Week 4. Tank moves slowly. 5 miles per hour. Dog chases. Crawls beneath when it stops. Week 5. Artillery noise introduced via loudspeakers. Dog startles, but hunger wins. Week 6. Blank rounds fired near the tank. Dog flinches. Continues. Week 7. The harness is added, empty at first. Dog learns the weight. Week 8. Harness loaded with sandbags. Same weight as explosives. Dog runs slower, but completes task. Week 9. Live harness. 12 kilograms of TNT. Safety pin removed. Wooden lever added. Dog runs practice course. Handler monitors. Week 10. Graduation. Dog is combat ready, or so the manual claims. June 22nd, 1941, 3:15 a.m. Operation Barbarossa begins. Nearly 4 million German soldiers, 3,000 tanks, 7,000 artillery pieces, and 2,500 aircraft cross the Soviet border. The largest military offensive in human history. The Red Army is caught unprepared. German forces advance rapidly. Blitzkrieg tactics, fast-moving armor supported by Stuka dive bombers. Soviet lines collapse. By late summer 1941, the Wehrmacht is closing on Moscow. Desperation grips Soviet command. Every weapon is thrown into the fight, including the dogs. Gasoline engines, different sound, different smell. Dogs refuse to dive under moving targets. Some persistent animals run alongside tanks, waiting for them to stop. German machine gunners shoot them down. Other dogs panic at the gunfire and explosions. They turn, run back toward Soviet trenches, jump in, detonate among their own soldiers. Friendly fire casualties mount. Out of 30 dogs, only 4 detonate near German tanks, inflicting unknown damage. 6 explode in Soviet trenches, killing and wounding Red Army infantry. 3 dogs are shot by German troops who recover the bodies. German intelligence examines the detonation mechanism. A captured Wehrmacht officer later reports they considered the program desperate and inefficient. The 120th Rifle Division near Smolensk deploys 8 anti-tank dogs against a German armored probe. 2 dogs reach their targets. 1 Panzer III is disabled. Track damage. The crew abandons vehicle. The second dog detonates beneath a Panzer II light tank. Complete destruction. Crew killed. But 3 dogs return to Soviet lines with live charges. Handlers shoot 2 dogs before they reach the trench. The third jumps in. Explosion kills 4 Soviet soldiers, wounds 11. The commander files a complaint, requests conventional anti-tank weapons instead. Request denied. Production cannot meet demand. They say the army does not stop with sacrificing people and now slaughters dogs too. Special departments, military counterintelligence, persecute dissenters. A Red Army captain writes a letter dated October 16, 1941. Most of his dogs refuse to go into battle. They jump back into trenches, causing injuries to infantry. The program teeters on the edge of cancellation. German forces are within 10 miles of the Kremlin by late November 1941. Commanders have no choice. Training schools focus entirely on anti-tank dogs. Tactics are revised. Dogs are conditioned to moving targets. Live fire is introduced during week 6 instead of week 8. Starvation conditioning intensifies. Some dogs receive no food for 7 days instead of 5. Animal welfare concerns are dismissed as bourgeois sentimentality. This is total war. Everything is expendable. By the end of 1941, over 1,000 dogs are deployed on the Eastern Front. By 1942, the number exceeds 2,000. About 40,000 dogs total serve various tasks in the Red Army during the war. A fraction are anti-tank specialists, but their impact is concentrated. Every German soldier must shoot any dog on sight in combat areas. Top-mounted machine guns on tanks prove ineffective. The dogs are too low, too fast, too hard to spot. Some panzer units add flamethrowers to tanks, fire wards off some attacks, but not all. Some dogs do not stop, not for fear of fire, not for being burned. The semi-fictional novel Kaput by Italian correspondent Curzio Malaparte describes German soldiers in Ukraine during 1941 and 42. One of their first tasks upon entering villages is seeking out and killing every dog on sight. Paranoia spreads. Any dog could be armed. Between the Panzers and Soviet headquarters stands the 4th Company of Anti-Tank Dogs. 56 dogs are released simultaneously. They launch a coordinated attack. The Germans are advancing in 3 columns, Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs, speed 15 miles per hour. The dogs are released from positions 200 meters ahead. They run low. Dust obscures them. German commanders spot movement, but cannot identify targets until too late. Machine gunners fire. Hit 6 dogs before they close distance, but 50 remain. The lead tanks try to stop. Formation disrupts. Dogs reach the column, crawl beneath chassis, multiple detonations. Exact count is disputed. Soviet records claim 14 tanks destroyed. German records admit 7 tanks disabled and 5 destroyed completely. The truth likely falls between. What is certain is the attack halts. German commanders order retreat. Regroup 3 kilometers back. The 4th Company of Anti-Tank Dogs has bought time. The Naval Infantry Brigade evacuates the command post, establishes new defensive line. The cost is 56 dogs, all dead. The handlers watch from trenches. Some weep, others reload weapons. There are always more battles. It directly supports our ability to keep researching and producing documentaries like this. Drop a comment with your city. Back to the story. A Panzer company, 12 tanks, advances toward the terminal building. Soviet anti-tank guns engage, destroy 2 tanks, the rest push forward. Infantry cannot stop them. Anti-tank dog unit deploys. 23 dogs. The terrain is urban, rubble, destroyed buildings, limited sight lines. Dogs use cover. Approach from multiple angles. German crews are focused on the terminal. Infantry screen ahead of tanks is thin. Dogs slip through. Reach the armor. 13 detonations confirmed. 7 tanks destroyed. 6 damaged. The attack stalls. German company commander orders withdrawal. Airport remains in Soviet hands for another week. The anti-tank dogs contribute to that week. In siege warfare, every day matters. Supplies, reinforcements, morale. The dogs buy days. Days buy survival. July 5th through August 23rd. The Germans launch Operation Citadel. 900,000 troops, 2,700 tanks and mobile assault guns, 2,000 aircraft. The goal is to pinch off the Kursk salient, encircle Soviet forces, restore offensive momentum after the disaster at Stalingrad. The Soviets know the plan in advance. The Lucy spy ring in Switzerland provides decrypted German communications. British intelligence at Bletchley Park, including Soviet mole John Cairncross, passes Wehrmacht-coded messages to Moscow. Soviet commanders build defenses in depth. Minefields stretch for kilometers. Trenches zigzag across the landscape. Anti-tank guns positioned at optimal firing angles. Tank formations held in reserve for counterattacks. And dogs. Near Tomarovka and Baikovo, designated height 244.5 on Soviet maps, July 12, 1943, the 4th Panzer Army's southern thrust punches through initial Soviet defensive lines. 12 German tanks, a mix of Panzerfus and the new Panther tanks, exploit the breakthrough. They are racing toward the rear areas, supply dumps, artillery positions, command posts. If they reach these targets, the entire defensive sector collapses. Soviet commanders have minutes to respond. Conventional reserves are engaged elsewhere. The only available asset is an anti-tank dog unit, 16 dogs. Handlers release them from concealed positions 300 meters from the German column. The panzers are moving fast, 25 miles per hour. Difficult targets. But the terrain helps. A shallow ravine forces the tanks to slow, navigate obstacles. Speed drops to 10 miles per hour. Dogs close the gap. German crews spot them. Machine guns open fire. 3 dogs are hit. 13 reach the column. Not all successfully crawl beneath tanks. Some are crushed by tracks. Others detonate prematurely when the wooden lever contacts debris. But enough succeed. Explosions ripple along the column. 12 tanks are disabled. Some completely destroyed. Others immobilized. Crews bail out. The breakthrough is stopped. Soviet reserves arrive. Counterattack. The sector holds. 12 tanks disabled. Breakthrough halted. The cost is 16 dogs. Soviet defenders hold a shrinking perimeter. Every meter of ground is contested. German bunkers and fortified positions dot the landscape outside the city. These positions anchor the siege lines. Destroying them requires resources the defenders lack. Enter the dogs. The mission is different from standard anti-tank work. Bunkers are stationary but heavily defended. Barbed wire, minefields, sentries, machine gun nests. The dogs are trained to navigate obstacles, find weak points, crawl beneath wire, avoid mines, detect human presence and run toward it. The attack is launched at night. Dogs are released from Soviet forward positions. They move through no man's land, some trigger mines. Others are shot by alert sentries, but several reach German bunkers. They run toward entrance points, crawl into firing slits, detonate inside. The explosions collapse several bunkers. An ammunition depot is destroyed. The blast is visible from Leningrad. Witnesses describe a column of fire rising hundreds of meters. German records confirm the loss of the depot. Exact casualty figures are not preserved, but the depot supplied an entire battalion. Its destruction forces German units to pull back, adjust siege lines, create gaps. Soviet forces exploit these gaps, conduct raids, gather intelligence, disrupt German operations. The dogs contribute to this disruption. Armor penetration is confirmed by chassis damage visible in photographs taken after Soviet forces retake the area. 13 tanks at Stalingrad, 12 at Kursk, 5 at Kharkiv. These are verified by multiple sources, including German records. The true total likely falls between 60 and 150 tanks. Still significant given the cost. Dogs are cheaper than tanks, faster to train than tank crews, expendable in ways human soldiers officially are not. Dogs trained on Soviet diesel tanks gravitate toward familiar smells. On mixed battlefields, they attack friendly armor. Several incidents are recorded where Soviet tanks are destroyed by their own dogs. Entire units suffer losses. Red Army morale plummets. One engagement in 1942 sees a large contingent of anti-tank dogs run amok. They endanger both sides. A Soviet division is forced to retreat. By mid-1943, the situation changes. The Red Army receives sufficient quantities of conventional anti-tank weapons. The PTRD-41 production ramps up. Lend-Lease shipments from the United States and Britain bring anti-tank guns and bazookas. Tank destroyers like the Su-85 enter service. The T-34 medium tank, armed with an 85mm gun after upgrades, becomes the backbone of Soviet armored forces. Dogs are no longer necessary for anti-tank work. The program continues after the war. Official Soviet doctrine keeps anti-tank dogs in reserve. Training extends until June 1996, 72 years after the Revolutionary Military Council first approved military dogs. 66 years after dedicated anti-tank training begins in 1930. 53 years after the last recorded combat use in 1943. Why? Cold War paranoia. Fear of NATO tank divisions rolling across the European plain. Preparation for scenarios that never materialize. Animals. Deployment has little success. Poor training. Cultural resistance. The program is quietly abandoned. Same design as Soviet methods. Training exposes fatal flaws. Dogs often return to handlers without entering bunkers or waiting the required time. Live fire would cause friendly casualties. Commanders fear dogs will return, scared by enemy fire. The program terminates on December 17, 1943. Attempts to revive it in 1944 and 1945 fail. Viet Minh forces fighting in Indochina use anti-tank dogs. Limited deployment, no detailed records survive. They trust their handlers. Run toward death, believing reward awaits. Soviet trainers who object face persecution. The program continues because commanders value results over animal welfare. War reduces moral calculations to stark arithmetic. One dog costs less than one shell. 12 kilograms of TNT carried by a starving German shepherd is cheaper than an anti-tank gun and crew. Malapart's account from the Eastern Front describes systematic killing of all dogs in Ukrainian villages. Paranoia becomes policy. Any animal could be weaponized. Trust is impossible. Shoot first. The psychological impact cuts both ways. Soviet soldiers watch dogs they trained die. Some handlers refuse to continue, others harden. Accept that war consumes everything, human, animal, moral scruple. Harness adjustable to individual dogs. 2 pouches containing 5 to 6 kilograms of TNT each. Total explosive load 10 to 12 kilograms. Wooden detonation lever 20 centimeters long. Spring-loaded mechanism. Requires sufficient backward pressure to trigger. Designed to activate only upon contact with tank chassis. But battlefield conditions introduce variables. Uneven terrain, panicked dogs, premature detonations. The lever contacts debris, tree branches, other dogs. Explosions occur before targets are reached. Practice with stationary tanks, diesel engines running, then stationary tanks with engines off, then slow-moving tanks, never fast-moving tanks, never gasoline engines, never live enemy fire. The gap between training and reality proves lethal. Ratio of success to failure is catastrophic. 13% mission success, 20% friendly fire, 10% enemy intelligence compromise. Yet the program expands. Why? Desperation. Moscow is threatened. Every weapon is tried. Failure is acceptable if it buys time. 56 dogs launched simultaneously. Saturation tactics. Overwhelmed German defenses. Multiple tanks destroyed. German retreat. This is the high watermark. The moment when the program justifies itself. But it is also the exception. Most deployments see mixed results. Some success, some failure, some disaster. Better training. Battlefield experience. Selection of veteran dogs. Coordination with infantry. Timing. The German tanks are moving through a breakthrough zone, focused on advancing, not watching for low threats. The dogs exploit the gap, strike when enemy attention is elsewhere. The airport is critical terrain. German forces need it for supply and reinforcement. Soviet defenders hold by narrow margins. The anti-tank dogs contribute, not decisively, but enough. Any canine in combat zones is to be shot immediately regardless of apparent threat level. Flamethrowers are added to tank equipment lists. Panzer crews receive training in anti-dog tactics. Some units deploy infantry screens ahead of armor, specifically to kill dogs before they reach vehicles. The screens move 50 to 100 meters ahead, armed with rifles and machine pistols. Their sole job is scanning for low-profile threats, dogs, satchel charges, mines. The dedication of infantry to this role reduces overall combat effectiveness, but commanders judge it necessary. Better to lose infantry efficiency than armor. Photographs from the Eastern Front, preserved in German Federal Military Archives, show burned dog carcasses near destroyed tanks. The dogs got through. The fire did not stop them. Some animals, witnesses report, continued moving even while burning. Pain receptors overwhelmed by hunger and conditioning. This disturbs German soldiers. Reports surface of troops refusing to use flamethrowers on dogs, preferring to shoot them instead. Commanders issue reprimands. Orders must be followed. Use whatever works. The psychological impact on both sides deepens. Use of dogs pales against mass executions and concentration camps. The argument holds until better anti-tank weapons arrive. Training schools shift to mine detection. Dogs transition to roles where they survive. Locate German mines. Save Soviet infantry. Transport supplies. Perform reconnaissance. These missions use the same animals, same training foundation, but the outcome is different. The dog lives, serves multiple missions. The cost-benefit calculation reverses. Doctrine keeps anti-tank dogs as contingency. But deployment never happens again. The Cold War sees massive tank forces on both sides. NATO and Warsaw Pact armor face each other across the inter-German border. Thousands of tanks, tens of thousands. Anti-tank guided missiles make dogs obsolete. Wire-guided systems like the Soviet AT-3 Sagar appear in the 1960s. Range 2,000 meters, precision guidance. No animal conditioning required. Later generations use laser guidance, fire and forget capability. The dog cannot compete with technology. The dogs worked once. They might be needed again. Training schools process smaller numbers, 20 to 30 dogs per year instead of hundreds. Standards rise. Only the best candidates are selected. The program becomes a curiosity, a footnote to larger preparations, but it persists. It continues until economic reality forces closure. Post-Soviet budget cuts eliminate marginal programs. Anti-tank dogs qualify as marginal. 53 years after the last combat use in 1943. A strange epilogue. The final class graduates 6 dogs. All are transferred to mine detection units. None ever carry explosives. They retire with their handlers, live out their lives in kennels. The last living anti-tank dog, a German shepherd named Bars, dies in 2003 aged 14. His handler keeps the collar, donates it to the Central Armed Forces Museum in Moscow. It is displayed with a small plaque. No mention of what Bars was trained to do, just that he served. Sufficient. The sculpture shows a dog on a granite base, resembles an East European shepherd but represents no specific breed. Symbolizes all dogs involved. The plaque reads, "Dedicated to the destroyers of fascist tanks. Battle of Stalingrad, 1942 to 1943. Official acknowledgement after decades of silence. Western military analysts examine Wehrmacht records, cross-reference with Soviet archives opened after 1991. The consensus settles around documented successes. Kursk, 12 tanks. Stalingrad, 13 tanks. Taganrog unknown but significant. Kharkiv, 5 tanks. Leningrad bunkers and depot. Other smaller engagements. Total estimated between 60 and 150 German armored vehicles damaged or destroyed. Not war-winning, but not negligible. But neither did conscripted soldiers. The moral equivalence is argued, never resolved. Paranoia over dogs reveals psychological vulnerability. The Wehrmacht is the most mechanized, modern military of its era, yet it is disrupted by an ancient weapon. Domesticated animals. The industrial war machine fears the primitive. Orders to shoot all dogs create new problems. Resources diverted, soldiers tasked with dog patrols. Flamethrower fuel consumed. Psychological impact on troops who must kill pets, children's companions. The unintended consequences ripple. The battlefield archaeology supports moderate claims. Excavations near Kursk find dog remains with explosive residue. Tank wrecks with belly damage consistent with small charges. German records note losses to unusual means. Soviet unit reports describe dog deployments. The evidence fits the middle estimate, not 300, not 0, somewhere between. Photographs in military archives, training manuals, harness designs, explosive pouches in museums. The material culture of the program survives, accessible to researchers after the Cold War. These artifacts confirm the program's scale. Thousands of dogs processed. Systematic approach, not improvisation. How many defended the program decades later? The interviews and memoirs provide fragments. No comprehensive study exists. The dogs cannot speak. The handlers often choose not to. The silence is data. The absence of testimony suggests trauma. Not all wounds are visible. Soviet soldiers died from friendly fire. The net effect on the war is debatable, but the attempt reveals desperation. The Soviet Union in 1941 and 42 is fighting for survival. Moscow is threatened. Leningrad is besieged. Stalingrad is contested. Every weapon is considered. Anything that might slow the German advance. Anti-tank dogs are one answer among many. Not the most important, not the most effective, but part of the total effort. The desperate measures, the choices made when the alternative is extinction. The archives preserve what remains. Man's best friend turned into living mine. Trained through starvation, deployed in desperation, effective in small numbers, obsolete by 1943, remembered imperfectly, argued endlessly, documented thoroughly enough to know what happened. They do not change the outcome. The Soviet Union wins, Germany loses. The cost is measured in tens of millions of lives, human and otherwise. The dogs are counted in the total, not separated, not elevated, just included. Humans exploit that trust to deliver explosives. The mechanism is clear. The morality is contested. The facts are preserved. This is what happened. These are the numbers. These are the sources. First deployment was summer 1941 with 30 dogs and 40 trainers. Success rate was initially 13%. Friendly fire rate was 20%. By 1942, over 2,000 dogs were deployed. Documented successes include Kursk with 16 dogs disabling 12 tanks, Stalingrad Airport with 13 tanks destroyed, Taganrog with 56 dogs, launched against 40 German tanks, and Kharkiv with 6 dogs, damaging 5 tanks. Soviet propaganda claimed 300 tanks total. Post-Soviet historians estimate 60 to 150 based on Wehrmacht records. The program ended operationally in 1943 when conventional anti-tank weapons became available. Training continued until June 1996. A monument was erected in Volgograd on May 28, 2011. Wikipedia's anti-tank dog entry updated January 2025 compiles primary documentation. War History Online published November 30th, 2016, cross-references German and Soviet archives. Russia. Beyond's August 22, 2018 article cites Red Army operational reports. Multiple peer-reviewed military history journals confirm the basic facts while disputing exact numbers. What the sources do not tell is how it felt. To be a German tank commander seeing dogs run at you. To be a Soviet handler shooting your own dog when it returns with a live bomb. To be a German shepherd running beneath a panzer, seeking food and finding death. Those perspectives are lost. The emotions are unrecorded. Only the actions remain. Documented, verified, uncomfortable. True. The final excavation was completed in 2019 near the village of Tamarovka. Height 244.5, where 16 dogs disabled 12 tanks in July 1943. Archaeologists found skeletal remains. 3 dogs. Explosive residue on the bones. Nearby a burned-out Panzer IV chassis with belly damage consistent with a 12-kilogram charge. The physical evidence matches the written record. The dogs existed. They fought. They succeeded sometimes. This particular success is no longer disputed. 3 dog skeletons, 1 destroyed tank. 76 years after the battle, the ground holds what memory forgets.